Welcome to Let the Boys Kiss, the creation of queer ships, where we ask the question, is it queer baiting, queer coding, or queer canon?
This week we'll be discussing the works and adaptations of S.E. Hinton. I'm Maddie.
And I'm Kelsey.
Okay, S.E. Hinton. Now, we said we were going to discuss various works of S.E. Hinton last time, and we kind of are going to do that. Our intention was to do 3 different adaptations, well, the original and 2 adaptations of The Outsiders, plus the original and an adaptation of Rumblefish. We watched and read and whatever, all the things, and we're kind of going to do that and kind of not.
Yes, it turned out as we got into it, there was not as much there for Rumblefish, so we'll touch on that much more briefly. But we'll cover The Outsiders more in depth. So, for The Outsiders, as we said, we read the book, we watched the 1983 film adaptation, and we saw the Broadway musical.
Hey, we traveled for this, guys. It's pretty exciting.
We went to New York City.
New York City.
We went to Broadway, and we took in a show.
Hell yeah.
But we did also read S.E. Hinton's Rumblefish. I don't know if I said The Outsiders was published in 1967, Rumblefish published in 1975, and also adapted in 1983, both films made by one Francis Ford Coppola.
Bet you didn't see that coming, did you?
Great auteur, best known, of course, for The Godfather, but also, you know, your Apocalypse Nows, your Conversations, your Megalopolises.
Very serious man, you know? Well, until Megalopolis.
Yes. And we can get a little bit into why did Francis Ford Coppola adapt these 2 S.E. Hinton works?
They spoke to his soul.
I really do think they did.
Yeah.
Honestly. I guess we should talk about it before we get into Rumblefish. So he got a letter from a librarian and a bunch of school kids who were like, Francis, please adapt this novel into a movie.
Yeah, we love this novel and you should adapt it. And he happened to be at a point in his life where he was like, not sure what he was going to do creatively. And also he needed money. And so he was like, why wouldn't I adapt this movie about a bunch of teenagers written by a teenage girl?
And he
Sounds
did.
Exactly up my alley.
And then while he was there working on it with S.E. Hinton, he was like, you know what we should also do? Rumblefish.
Rumblefish.
And they back-to-back these bad boys.
Yeah, and he says, or said at some point, that his best film was Rumblefish.
Francis Ford Coppola's favorite of his own films that he made is Rumblefish.
Take that, Godfather lovers.
Yeah. And it might bear out for us, too. I don't know. I haven't seen The Godfather. I've seen Apocalypse Now, and I would say I at least like The Outsiders more than Apocalypse Now, me personally.
Yeah, at this point, The Outsiders is making a strong case, because what a movie.
Quite a film. I don't know that I feel quite as strongly about Rumblefish, but you know what? Francis is an artist, and it is an artistic film.
I mean, he had a vision. So let's briefly discuss Rumblefish, since we didn't find as much material as we wanted for this film, but that doesn't mean there aren't things about it worth mentioning.
True. So Rumblefish is a very short book about...
A novella, really.
Yes. About a guy named Rusty James, who is a tough kid. He's like 14 or something.
I think he's older.
Is he 16?
Yeah, something like that, because I think his brother is like 21 and he's like 17 or something. Okay. I think they're a little bit older than the cast of The Outsiders.
Gotcha. Anyway, he has this brother, the motorcycle boy, who's the coolest guy in town. And
just the coolest guy in town.
I mean, with the name The Motorcycle Boy.
Yeah.
And they live with their alcoholic father, and their mother left them when they were young. And it does have sort of a dreamlike quality. We're just sort of in Rusty James's perspective. He doesn't seem to really understand what's going on with anyone around him. He has this best friend, Steve.
Who's a total nerd.
He really is. And the book has a framing device where he meets Steve in the future when they're older, and it's a flashback to his time with Steve. And then the end of their friendship. And basically, he's getting into lots of trouble. He gets kicked out of school. He cheats on his girlfriend and she breaks up with him.
And he's shocked.
He is really like, what did me cheating on you have to do with you? Why would you break up with me? He gets beaten up when they go into town late at night. And then the motorcycle boy, who everyone thinks is crazy, but, is he crazy or is society crazy? That's the question.
Exactly.
Ends up freeing all the animals from the pet store and getting gunned down by the cops because of it. And that's sort of the end of the story.
Which is pretty wild because he doesn't have a weapon or anything.
No, well, it's implied that this one cop just wants to kill him.
Yeah, but you'd think he should get in trouble for shooting a guy just for carrying fish.
And maybe he will. But it's
Maybe
too late.
He will.
The motorcycle boy's dead.
It's too late for the motorcycle boy. That's true.
He's dead.
So yeah, all those things happen, but really it's about Rusty James wanting to connect with his, older brother who he idolizes and struggling to make the connection. Mm-hmm. And thinking like it is his destiny to run this gang because it is what motorcycle boy.
But gangs are out.
Gangs are out. Rumbling is out.
Yes. Which is pretty wild. Okay, so then Francis adapts it into the film, Rumblefish, also 1983, starring Matt Dillon.
And like a crazy who's who of
Mickey
other
Rourke
actors.
and Dennis Hopper and Larry Fishburne.
Larry Fishburne, good old Larry.
Good old Larry Fishburne. Oh, and a very young Nicolas Cage, looking so youthful.
A Coppola himself.
And a young Sofia Coppola. Also looking very youthful because she's
Sophia
like
Coppola.
10 or something.
She's a child.
She's a little
literal child.
And Diane Lane is back also. So that's kind of our main cast. The film is in black and white because it's art, except for the rumblefish at the end who are in color. And that's sort of reflected in the novel because I keep talking about how the motorcycle boy can't see color.
Which is weird. Like, I don't really know. Like, Steve himself is trying to get at, I thought that people just mixed up red and green. Like, what do you mean you can't see color?
Can't see any colors, and he's mostly deaf. He's so cool. And, you know how that's really cool to not see colors.
I'm hearing all the time about how cool that is. Yeah, for sure.
So we'll get into this when we talk about The Outsiders, but the thing that watching Rumblefish really solidified for me, and we talked a little bit about this, I think this is what Francis is really like resonating with in terms of why this might be his favorite film. I think the man was born to design and film boy rumbles. Yep. There's a boy rumble in this movie that is absolutely incredible. It's quite early in the film, so if you get a hold of it, just watch the boy rumble. There's smoke, there's trains, there's this great set, there's water, there's people swinging around on ropes. The motorcycle boy runs his motorcycle into another boy, and that boy flips around. Mm-hmm. It's extraordinary. It's just high filmmaking. I mean, Francis. This is what we're talking about. This is why this is what we're into. Boy rumbles.
Yeah, it has a very heightened, almost like West Side Story without the music quality to it. You're like, this is a serious situation, this rumble. Mm-hmm. Boys be rumbling.
They be rumbling. Now, how did you feel about Rumblefish? Either the book or the film?
The book was sort of fine, whatever. Yeah, I mean, it's like not a very memorable experience. The film was a really weird experience. A lot of parts of it to me felt like a student film. The performances are
in that it was
insane.
Very artistic.
Yeah, in that it thought it was very artistic, for sure. Yeah, it was weird because there are lots of great actors, and some of them are very compelling because they're great actors, but the material is bizarre, the dialogue's not good, and the staging of some of it is strange. Not the boy rumble. The boy rumble, of course, rules.
Boy rumble holds.
But there are scenes where you're like, what is this? It does not feel like, it's being led by a deft hand of a guy who's already directed several films that will go down in history.
The guy who's already directed The Godfather.
So yeah, I found it to be very, very strange. I also felt, we'll get into the cast of The Outsiders when we get there. It was odd that the one Outsiders boy he felt he needed to bring into this film was Matt Dillon. And that's no hate to Matt Dillon. He can be perfectly fine. He was struggling to lead this film a little bit, I thought.
Yeah, you had told me about that before I watched it. I think upon rewatching The Outsiders, I mean, There's a lot of Dally. I think Francis was quite enamored with Matt Dillon.
He's a Dally guy, yeah. He's a Matt Dillon
quite
head.
enamored with Matt Dillon. And I thought he was fine. It seemed like a lot of his lines were maybe 80-yard, which never helps the performance feel good.
Yep.
So I'm not quite sure what happened with the sound on the film. Maybe like they were, trying to tailor it to Mickey Rourke whispering the whole time, and so it got like blown out. I don't really know.
Yeah, maybe. Well, lower your volume when you're acting against whispering Mickey Rourke.
Mickey Rourke whispers all of his lines.
Yes, he does.
But yeah, I think the amount of ADR that was happening with Matt Dillon did not help his performance.
Yeah, I think that's fair. But anyway, I mean, weird little movie. Just check it out and you'll see what we're talking about. It's a hard thing to describe what's going on in this
That
movie.
Boy Rumble was pretty great. I don't know that I like it better than the Boy Rumble and the Outsiders, because I feel like I'm more emotionally invested in the Outsiders Boy Rumble.
Yes.
And there are, again, some great directorial choices, but the part where the motorcycle boy kills that or hits that kid with his motorcycle was
that's
incredible.
a Coppola invention, because that's not how it happens in the book,
no.
Yeah, the Boy Rumble in that is quite good, but it's hard to compare it to The Outsiders, because the reason The Outsiders work so well, despite whatever its flaws may be, you're very emotionally invested in the storyline of The Outsiders, so all of it works better.
The Boy Rumble and The Outsiders is the climax. This is table setting.
Well, this is the introduction of Motorcycle Boy.
Yeah.
So he just has to come in and be real cool, so that we'll be like, wow, that guy's cool. I see why his brother thinks he's the coolest.
He uses his motorcycle as a weapon. I can't believe that motorcycle didn't just fall down.
In the hands of Motorcycle Boy, the motorcycle can be used for whatever he wants.
That's true. I mean, he is the motorcycle boy. Mm-hmm. The motorcycle boy reigns. That's what the graffiti says after he's shot down. And everyone in town is there for some reason, despite the fact that it's the middle of the night.
They all show up. Why are you here? Yes. I think we should spend a moment, since this is Let the Boys Kiss, talking about, is there any queer subtext in this book? What are the characters doing in their relationships with each other?
Yes.
Thoughts?
So I think one of the questions I had coming into this episode was, is the queerness stemming from S.E. Hinton? Is it stemming from Francis? Both a little different. I don't know. I feel like the book has more stuff than the movie. Because in the book, we are spending a lot more time with Rusty James and his friend Steve. And Steve is barely in the film. It's much more brother focused. So I would say if I had to say which one had more queer content, I'd go book.
Yep.
Which I don't think, not to spoil it, S.E. Hinton would not like to hear me say.
We'll get to you later, Essie. Yeah, no, I agree. There's more content in the book, but even that content is fairly minimal. There's a lot of, he's best friends with this guy, Steve. People are like, why are you friends with this guy? He's such a loser. And he's like, he understands me or whatever. And so they also, are going around town having adventures, and then they get attacked, and then they're worried about each other. And, they like it. They're best friends. They like each other. That's kind of the extent of what's going on.
Yeah, until Steve is like, I shouldn't see you anymore. You're no good for me.
Well, yeah, he is getting him into a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
His parents wouldn't like it.
His parents didn't like it. He came home late, and then his dad beat him up. And then he was like, I need to not hang out with you.
There's a lot of abusive parents in these books, by the way.
Very true.
It's a rough situation out there. I guess that's what's driving everyone to the boy gangs.
Yeah. Although, again, not to get ahead of it, in The Outsiders, Darian, Soda Pop, and Pony were in the boy gang even when they had their very nice parents alive.
Well, kind of. They also speak as if before the parents died, Derry would have kind of been a soc. He was like a jock at school.
But I feel like that has less to do with the parents and more to do with him being really good at football. I don't think there was any indication that Soda Pop wasn't running with Steve and everyone. Different Steve.
Soda Pop's always been friends with Steve.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, but that's all. It's like they were poor, so they were friends with the poor people in town.
Well, except for, as we learned, Ponyboy, who has a bunch of middle-class friends that aren't part of this at all.
That's just because he's a nerd and he goes to school with all the middle-class people. Anyway, yeah, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Minimal stuff going on in either the book or the film, but even less in the film. of Rumblefish. S.E. Hinton, obsessed with the name Steve, we're learning.
Multiple Steves.
And Steve is always someone's best friend.
Steve is always someone's best friend.
It's true. They're always
the
saying
role
that.
of a Steve. Me and you and your friend Steve.
And your friend Steve.
Steve.
Exactly. Anything else to say about Rumblefish? I don't want to go on and on about it.
No. Coppola, art, etc.
High art. What a movie.
What a film. Okay. So The Outsiders.
Okay.
Where there is there. We think.
Oh,
we'll
yeah.
get into it.
This is our essay giving you the evidence for the there.
So, what's the story, Madeline?
Well, it's Tulsa, 1967, and there's just one thing you need to know. You've got greasers and socias. That's how it's always been, and that's probably how it's always gonna go.
So true. So true.
So yeah, that is pretty much it. We're in this town in Tulsa. There's greasers, who are the gang of poor kids who grease their hair. And you got socias, because they live their life like socialites. They're rich and also very aggressive for some reason. And our main characters that we're following, our narrator is Ponyboy Curtis, who lives with his two brothers, Soda Pop and Daryl.
Yeah.
Fascinating names. And they're part of the Greasers. And the plot of the story is like they come into conflict with the Socias in devastating ways.
True. So, yeah, we meet all of our greaser friends. They go to a drive-in. They start hanging out with one of the Soch girls, Cherry Valance. And one of the Soch, who's her boyfriend, gets mad. He ends up following up with Ponyboy and Johnny in the park after Daryl's hit Ponyboy because Ponyboy came home late.
Yeah.
And Daryl regrets it. But wait, did we say their parents are dead?
We didn't say their parents are dead. Daryl is their brother who's like 20, and he's been raising these two teenage boys. It's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot for Daryl.
He couldn't go to college. He has to work multiple jobs. He's struggling.
He should have had a football scholarship. He should have been out of this town.
Yeah. So they come home late. Daryl gets upset because he's worried about Ponyboy. Ponyboy's really smart. He thinks he can do, big things. If he just
He can do
go to
great
school,
things.
he can do great things. And so he hits him, and Ponyboy runs away. He's in the park with Johnny. The Socias come back. They're drowning Ponyboy in a fountain, and Ponyboy passes out. When he wakes up, he finds that Johnny has stabbed one of the Socias. The Socia's dead, and they're like,
Yeah.
oh,
Well, and we should
damn.
mention Johnny has been suffering from PTSD from having been jumped by the Socias like a month ago, and he has been just like feeling like he's under attack. He's been carrying around a knife this whole time. He was like primed to not react well to being attacked by the Socias.
So Johnny and Ponyboy go to their other friend Dallas Winston, who is from New York City, and he's probably like the baddest of the boys. He has like an actual rap sheet, and so they're like, Dally, we killed a kid. What are we gonna do? And so Dally sets them up. He gives them money and tells them how to get to this abandoned church.
Honestly, great friend. They go to him. They're like, we need your help. No questions asked. And he's like, here you go. I have an escape plan for you.
Yeah, here's $50 and a coat, and get on this train, and you'll be here and do all these things. And so they run off. They get to this church. They're there for like about a week before Dallas is able to come up and get them to take them somewhere. They go out to get lunch, and we'll loop back around to what they do in the church because it's important, but plot-wise.
This is just the overview.
Yeah, they go out to get lunch. Johnny's like, I should turn myself in. Dallas has told him, like, Cherry will vouch that it was self-defense. Obviously, Pony will vouch that it was self-defense. And he's like, I don't want Pony to have to be running his whole life, especially because he knows that Derry and Soda miss him. They wrote him a letter. They're like, we're worried about you. Just come home.
But nobody wrote Johnny a letter.
Nobody wrote Johnny a letter. But on the drive back, they see that the church is on fire, and they're like, what's going on there?
Yeah, somehow the church that they just left
is now on fire.
It's on fire.
And also, for some reason, there's a school trip to the abandoned church.
I think it's just to near the abandoned church, but the kids have snuck into the abandoned church right before it caught on fire.
Yes, and so there's a bunch of children in the burning church. They run in, they save the kids.
Heroes.
They become heroes, but unfortunately, a beam has fallen on Johnny. He's broken his back. He's very badly burnt. Ponyboy is mostly okay. Dally got his arm burned. And so they are brought back into town. They're written up as these heroes. Pony reunites with his brothers, and he learns that they're going to have a huge rumble. Like, since the Soch was killed, like, things are on. And so it's going to be like full-blown Soch greaser rumble. And so they get ready for the rumble. They rumble.
They rumble.
They rumble. Dally breaks out of the hospital to get there and help rumble. They win the rumble.
Hell yeah! Go Greasers.
And then they go back to the hospital, and unfortunately Johnny dies. He succumbs to his burns. And we'll also get into what he tells Ponyboy in the hospital. But everyone's distraught. Dally is very distraught. He ends up suiciding by cop out of his sadness in the book and in the film. We'll get to what happens in the musical. And, Pony's very sad, but he decides what he's going to do is he's going to document his feelings and his life and, like, what's going on with the Greasers. And the sort of bookend is this book is the book he wrote about his experiences.
Hell yeah. It's very productive to deal with your grief through art.
Yeah.
Okay, so those are the broad strokes of the plot, and they are true for all three versions, so we didn't want to go through it 3 different times. So now let's talk, before even we get into the shippy stuff, what are the differences in the book, the movie, and the musical that are worth noting? We should say for the book, and I will say the spirit of this carries through all adaptations, but the book was written by a 16-year-old girl. And you could tell.
You can tell.
You could definitely tell in a lot of ways. Some of them great, by the way. Like, a thing that I really enjoyed about the movie when I watched it for the first time was that it felt like it was written by a 16-year-old in the way that, like, every emotional stake is as heightened as it could possibly be at every moment of the film. And you're like, and it's working. You're, like, crying at stuff, and you're like, damn, this is crazy. I can't believe this is happening at every moment. But it also shows up in some sort of hilarious ways.
Yeah, I think there's just throughout, like, she'll just introduce things very quickly. Then you're like, well, that's out of nowhere. Like, I think, too, when they rolled back past the church and she's just like, there's a bunch of kids here. And you're like, what?
You're like, what? Where did they come from? And why is it on fire? And what, like, we set the fire, but we're away from the church. How is this all working?
Well, I'm not quite sure. But my favorite part where she's just introduced something and then quickly justified it is right before the rumble. All of the boys are so excited. They start doing flips. And you might say to yourself, but why do all of these greasers know how to do handstands and cartwheels and tumbles?
Here's the thing, though. I don't know that I would have said that to myself. I would have just been like, okay, cool, they're doing flips. But she's like, people will wonder, so I need to provide an explanation.
Yes, and the reason that, and this is all taking place in, like, 2 paragraphs, the flips and the explanation. Okay, so you're reading this book, all this stuff is happening, and then very briefly she's like, and also they all did a bunch of flips. And the explanation is that Derry, the oldest brother of the Curtis family, took an acrobatics class at the Y and spent a summer teaching them how to all do flips. And you're like, okay,
Makes
sure.
sense. Thank you for explaining that so I don't have to wonder.
Now, you might say a gymnastics class at the Y? No.
No.
Acrobatics.
An acrobatics class. Of course. Of course.
Yep.
And you know what? Great. That's very helpful. Useful skills for them to learn. So that's delightful.
Yes.
Then another thing that comes through in her 16-year-oldness is that Essie Hinton, she's a horse girl.
Yes. She's an avowed horse girl.
Yep.
So in the book, and this does not come through in the movie or the musical, they're all into rodeo.
Yeah, and to the point that, who is it? Who's the one that it does rodeo? Is it Dally?
Might be Dally.
One of them is like in the rodeo. And there's a horse named Mickey Mouse.
That's a horse that Soda Pop loved.
Yeah, Soda Pop loved this horse named Mickey Mouse. Cute name for a horse.
Sure.
And that will come back later, so keep that in mind.
Yes, and sometimes they mention too when they first meet Cherry Valance that they've seen her down at the rodeo. So
Yeah.
everyone's rodeoing.
It is Oklahoma. It's
Sure.
a horse place. So, sure.
Again, not a thing you're like, no way. You're just like, huh, okay. Not in the movie.
Not in the movie. Probably because Coppola doesn't know shit about horses.
He's not a horse boy.
He's not a horse boy. So yeah, we got horse stuff, we got Mickey Mouse, and then it must be mentioned, Cherry Valance. That name sounds sort of familiar. Why is that? Why is that reminding me of something? Valance. What if I said Valance?
Oh, Cherry Valance.
Cherry Valance, noted queer-coded character in Red River.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about it on this show before. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. Red River. What a gay movie.
Very queer. Very queer. Very cowboy, very queer, very horse.
Very horse.
Very boys.
Exactly. So, just interesting to know.
Just interesting to name your female lead after a queer guy in a movie.
Well, if you're going to have one girl in your movie about all boys, she should at least be named after a gay cowboy character.
That's what I always say. Every
That's
time.
what I always say.
Every time.
Okay. So what is interesting to note about the movie?
Well, we can all say what we will about Francis Ford Coppola. Mm-hmm. He was casting the shit out of this movie.
Ooh, this man done invented the Brat Pack.
Hottest young actors. Okay, who we got? We got
Well,
Matt Dillon, as we said. He's Dally.
yeah, obviously.
In the lead role, we got C. Thomas Howell.
I feel like poor C. Thomas Howell has suffered in comparison to the rest of this
Well,
cast.
he did that movie where he was in blackface the whole time, and I think it really derailed his career, but whose fault is that?
That's going to be his fault. Anyway, after C. Thomas Howell and Matt Dillon, we got Johnny is Ralph Macchio.
Oh, sweet little Ralph Macchio.
We got Dairy and Soda Pop. The brothers are Patrick Swayze and Rob Lowe.
So beautiful.
Two-Bit Matthews is Emilio Estevez.
And he's great.
Soda Pop's best friend Steve, why, that's Tom Cruise.
Of course it is.
And then, of course, as we already mentioned, you have Diane Lane as Cherry Valance.
Yes.
What a cast.
And in a small role playing the So She Gets Killed, her boyfriend Bob, it's Leif Garrett, the musician. And you're just like, okay, cool.
Well, also Tom Waits is in it, which I didn't remember, because he's also in Rumblefish.
Tom Waits is also in it. Huh. It's a wild cast.
Anyway,
it's a crazy cast.
It's quite the cast. They're all young and beautiful. I believe Rob Lowe turned 18 on this set, so he really was like getting the primo young cast of the rest of the 80s, honestly. Pretty good job with the casting.
Yep.
But his most important innovation, wouldn't you say, is
around
of
the
course
Rumble.
to do with the Rumble, as all of his inspiration is around the Rumble. He said, "Make it rain."
Ooh. Okay. So in the book, the Rumble is, I don't remember any of the weather around the Rumble. I'm sure it takes place at night. You know, everyone's getting together. So the boys arrive at the Rumble, and there's these two huge bonfires going on
You have to have fire at your Rumble.
in the empty lot. Who, I guess there were some greasers who got there before our boys, and I guess they set up the fires.
The lighting design for your Rumble is very important. You have to set it up.
Okay, so they arrive, the fires are going, and then right as the Rumble is about to start, we hear thunder. And the heavens open up. It's pouring, baby. We're all wet.
Pouring. But is it putting the fire out?
No.
Hell no.
No. We've got fire, we've got rain, and now we've got boys rolling around in mud. They're mud wrestling.
They're fighting. Their shirts are wet and clinging to them.
Again, one day I will watch The Godfather, and I will say to myself, this isn't what Francis was made to do. Francis was made to conceive of and shoot boy rumbles.
Well, he hadn't found his calling yet. He did The Godfather first. And then he was like, this needs more boy rumbles.
Unless, again, there's a boy rumble in The Godfather that I just don't know about.
Oh, sure.
I can't imagine there's a boy rumble in The Conversation.
I want him to shoehorn a boy rumble into every movie he ever makes.
Yeah.
Do you think there's one in Megalopolis?
I mean, I would hope so, but I haven't heard about it. I feel like that would have leaked out into, popular imagination. There certainly wasn't a boy rumble in Apocalypse Now, and I feel like you really could have had a boy rumble there.
You can't have a boy rumble in the middle of a war.
Why not? There's a bunch of boys.
It just it makes it feel a little less serious, I think, when people are rumbling.
I'm just saying it's his calling, okay?
It is his calling.
It's incredible. It's incredible, and we'll see it carry through, because once you see the boy rumble in the rain, like, you can't step back from that. You can't
remove the rain. Yeah, of course
no.
not. Also, an important element of the movie, which is like similar to the book, but really works in the movie, is the reunion scene between Daryl and Ponyboy.
So we don't get much Daryl before this. Daryl, as we said, is Swayze.
We're in Ponyboy's perspective, and Ponyboy's perspective is, my older brother's a dick. He doesn't even love me. He's so mean to me all the time. He's always on my case about everything that I do, and he's such a jerk. Whereas when you're reading it as an adult, you're like, he's doing his best, kid.
He's really trying. Again, he's a child raising his younger brothers, and he wants good things for you, and so he doesn't want you to get in trouble with all these other knuckleheads.
Exactly. But Ponyboy doesn't know that. He's a stupid 14-year-old, and so he's like, why is my brother so mean to me? Which is the source of most of their conflict throughout. But then, while he's away, he really comes to realize, like, I miss my brother. Clearly, he's taking care of me. I feel bad. He gets this letter from them that makes him feel like, oh, maybe they do love me after all. Mm-hmm. And then they run into each other at the hospital after he comes back from his saving the children moment.
Yeah.
And they just have the sweetest reunion.
Oh my God. He sees Soda Pop first, he hugs him, and then he sees Daryl and he runs into his arms, and they all hug, and Swayze, perfect performance here, goes, yep. I thought I lost you, just like we lost Mom and Dad. And you're just like, no!
Oh God!
Not just like we lost Mom and Dad. Oh no. It's great.
It's great. And I think Patrick Swayze is really important and perfect casting for that role, because there is so little Daryl that you want somebody that, even though he's not having a lot going on or in the early parts of the movie, every time you see him, you're like, well, that's Swayze. Love that guy. And then when they have their moment of reconciliation, you're like, thank God.
Oh, Daryl.
Oh, Daryl.
Daryl, Soda, Ponyboy. Go together again.
Absolutely great.
Okay, my other favorite thing about the translation of book to film is we lose all of the horse stuff. The horse stuff is completely gone.
So long, horse stuff.
But I feel like Francis heard that Mickey Mouse was in the book.
Well, I'm sure he's read the book. He didn't just hear that Mickey Mouse was
I'm not convinced. But he decides we have to keep Mickey Mouse.
It's an homage.
But Mickey Mouse is no longer a horse. Mickey Mouse appears in the film The Outsiders through the character of Two-Bit, played by Emilio Estevez. And Two-Bit just loves Mickey Mouse. He wears a Mickey Mouse shirt. There's a part in the film where they're like, Two-Bit, Mickey's on TV. And he's like, what? And he has to sit down and watch Mickey. The man loves Mickey Mouse.
I think it's a great homage. I love it.
I mean, I like it. It's just fascinating. But you know what? Emilio commits to loving Mickey Mouse.
You believe that this, 16-year-old boy is just a huge Mickey Mouse fan? Mm-hmm. Why not?
And I like his shirt, his Mickey shirt.
It's cute.
Yeah. So those are sort of the major film changes, I think we'll say.
Mm-hmm. So, what about the musical? How much do they stick to the book versus the movie? Sort of an interesting line to walk when you're doing an adaptation. And there's these two different famous versions of a thing. Which one are you going to be closer to?
And I think it is more movie than book. So one of the interesting things is they make the cast quite multiracial.
Which makes sense.
Sure. I mean, all the Socs are still white, but the greasers are mixed.
They would be, wouldn't they?
I mean, I'm not saying that was the wrong choice. I'm just, saying it's not, completely throughout. They also had a girl to the greaser.
There's a girl greaser.
Ace.
She's cool.
Yeah, I like her. There's a lot more Daryl in the musical.
Yes! Daryl.
We get a lot more of his perspective. They really drive home that he is trying his best and he sacrificed a lot to raise his brother. So if like you didn't pick up on that.
And he feels like he's failing all the time.
Poor sweet Daryl.
Oh, I love
Poor
Daryl.
sweet Daryl. So yes, if you maybe are a teenager and would read the book and not sympathize with Daryl, the musical is going to bring you along into Daryl's perspective.
The musical's like, think about Daryl, because he's really going through it.
And look at Daryl. He's thick.
He's thick.
Thick has a thick boy to play Daryl. Which really translates in stage production. You're like,
For sure.
You're fairly far away from him. You're like, but man, he's thick.
He's tall, he's thick.
Yeah.
And he's so sensitive.
Oh, sweet Daryl. He has multiple songs where he just sings about, trying to be a good brother.
Trying to keep his family together, feeling like he's letting everybody down.
Trying his best.
Daryl.
He's working around the clock. He's working his fingers to the bone.
He is. He's great. Love all the Daryl changes.
Yeah, Daryl's great.
There are some weird changes that they made with Dally that we should discuss. Who, by the way, Dally also super cool. Loved the actor that was Dally.
Oh, he had a great voice, too.
Yeah. So good.
He's black.
He's black. He's got a great voice. He's super cool. And they did weird things to his ending in particular. So as we mentioned in both the book and the movie, after Dally freaks out about Johnny dying, he goes and like robs a store. He has an unloaded gun that we've set up earlier in the story, and he's like running around in the streets, and the cops come and they shoot him because he's waving around a gun.
He at least has a weapon, unlike poor Mickey Rourke and Rumblefish.
Poor Mickey Rourke just getting shot for carrying fish. So anyway, yeah, that's what happens in both the book and the movie with Dally, who he loses all hope and he just
suicides by cop.
Suicides by cop. In this one, we've set up throughout the musical that Dally has like been hopping trains his whole life. He started in New York. He had to escape that situation. He hopped a train to another town. They list a bunch of places. I don't even remember what they are. But he's been in a bunch of different cities, and every time shit hits the fan, he's got to get out of there. He hops a train. And so he's got this whole train motif going through his whole life. And then when Johnny dies and he is like, screw this, I'm out of here, he says, I realize what I need to do now. I'm going to do it for Ponyboy and for Johnny and for all the boys. He steps in front of a train and just like gets hit by a train.
Yeah.
What?
I don't know.
What does it all mean?
We think that they were trying to sand off some of the more controversial elements of the book and the movie, because another change that they've made is Gone with the Wind figures quite prominently in both those versions, and they've replaced it in this one with Great Expectations.
Yep.
So I think it feels like they're trying to make it just a little bit more palatable.
Yeah.
It's kind of lame.
It's lame, and also like, especially now that you've made your character black, I feel like there's an even more added element to the ending of the suicide by cop thing that would be like, oh wow, yeah. Like that's very thought provoking.
Yeah.
As opposed to the train where you're like, huh?
Why'd he do that?
Why do you do that? And also, what does he mean he's going to do it for Ponyboy? Like, how does Ponyboy benefit from you stepping in front of a train?
And also, I think they said that he derailed the train, and like, that sucks.
That's not good. That's not good at all. If I were him, I wouldn't anticipate that a train hitting my little body would derail it, though.
I mean, they were shocked in the musical as well. They're like, can you believe that a train hitting a boy would derail?
That's surprising.
It is, but also like, that sucks. Hopefully it wasn't a passenger train, but
hopefully
still.
not.
Or it wasn't carrying like chemicals.
Ooh, yeah, that's even worse.
Hopefully he didn't cause a chemical spill.
Yeah, but just sort of weird. Like they've tried to set it up with the trains throughout so that I guess they feel like they're like paying off something that they've set up. But to me,
it was a strange change
for the worse. Didn't like that change.
Strange. They did keep the rain in the rumble. And so I would say like overall, I thought the production of this musical was quite fun. All of the violence happens in slow-mo. So like someone will get
really
hit
neat,
and then people will move, like they're in slow-mo. There's like an interesting use of like a strobe light, so things will like blink out when Ponyboy loses consciousness, which happens multiple times in the story, and you're really worried about his brain.
Which the only version of these that talks about that is the book, by the way. The book gets into like, oh, he's concussed.
Yeah, and you're like, yeah, that makes sense, but also he's can someone take this boy to like a hospital for reals?
He needs to go to a doctor. Yeah.
But yeah, no, they keep the rain in the rumble, which is awesome on stage.
On stage, it's so cool.
The fire effects when the church burns down are really cool also.
Yep. The lighting design is sick.
Yeah.
There's a couple of cars on stage that are really neat. There's this like rubbery composite material on the stage, kind of like you'll see at like playgrounds, like black rubber bits that they use for their design and for the fight, and it's like really, really,
and it
really
kicks
cool
up when
looking.
they're dancing and moves around, and I'm sure is doing something with the water absorption too, or it's hiding where the water's going on the stage. But
Yep.
it's good. I like the production of it a lot. But yes, they said no rain at the Rumble. Not now.
Not happening. Couldn't be our production.
We can't take it away. One thing that's missing: no Mickey Mouse. Not as
None.
a horse.
Not a horse.
Not as an obsession
Not a
of
mouse.
a boy. They could have had a mouse in their home that they nicknamed Mickey Mouse. No Mickey
cute.
Mouse. I don't know if they didn't want to pay Disney or what happened, but
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know that you have to pay Disney just for mentioning Mickey Mouse. I mean,
but you might have if 2-Bit was going to wear a Mickey Mouse shirt.
that's true. If you're going to show the likeness, probably. Anyway, no Mickey Mouse, but you know what there is plenty of? Paul Newman.
Yay! Yeah, we didn't mention, but the movie, it all starts with him mentioning that he stepped out of the dark theater into the light. He'd seen a Paul Newman picture and he was thinking about whether or not he looked like Paul Newman.
Yep.
But Paul Newman looms large over the musical.
Oh, yeah. In this version, when he gives this initial speech, like when I stepped out of the movie house, I had two thoughts on my mind, and one of them was Paul Newman. He steps off stage, and then they show bits of Paul Newman on the big screen, and you're like, hell yeah,
You're
give
like,
us
ooh,
Newman.
Yeah. I'll come to this musical, but I'm seeing Paul Newman. I like.
Exactly. You love it. You love to see it. He comes up multiple times. He does a lot of talking about different movie stars throughout the musical, more than happens in either of the other things.
Yes.
Because there's Daryl telling him if he wants to be like James Dean, he's going to crash and burn. There's talk later on about Burt Lancaster in our favorite line of the musical.
Yes. So we didn't mention, but when they're hiding out in the church, they dye Ponyboy's hair blonde. And he asks Johnny if he looks like Paul Newman. Or he wants Johnny to say he looks like Paul Newman. I think, does Johnny tell me he looks like Julie Andrews? Where does Julie Andrews come
He
up?
asks if he looks like Julie
He
Andrews.
asks if he looks like Julie Andrews. And Johnny's like, no. And he's like, do I look like Paul Newman? He's like, no, you look like Burt Lancaster and Elmer Gantry. And
He's like,
Burt Lancaster is a sissy and Elmer Gantry sucks. And we were like, yeah, Elmer Gantry does suck.
yeah. We were like, we're probably the only people in this theater that care, but Elmer Gantry does suck.
So if you don't listen to our Oscars podcast, we did cover Elmer Gantry. It does suck. I generally like Burt Lancaster. I'm not opposed to him. I don't know that I think he's a sissy.
I don't know that he's a sissy, but he's very... The thing is, he's so conventionally attractive. He's like square-jawed,
He's not cool like Paul Newman.
No. There's nothing about him that feels like outside of the mainstream. He just feels like a guy that housewives would be really into, you know?
Just fine.
Yeah.
I've liked him in other things, but Elmer Gantry does suck.
Elmer Gantry is not one of those things.
No. 7 Days in May,
He's good in From Here to Eternity.
even though his character is insane.
His character sucks, but he's good.
He's good. Oh, you know what else he's good in? Judgment at Nuremberg.
Oh, yeah. Who isn't good in that movie,
I mean,
though?
fair enough. Ooh, Robert Montgomery again. We're back, but not Robert Montgomery. Montgomery Clift. Montgomery Clift is also in
Absolutely love
Nuremberg.
Montgomery Clift.
Yes. Okay, anyway, this is not about The Outsiders. So, those are the differences between the book, the movie, and the musical. Obviously, the book sets the template for the melodrama, for just the wildness. You've got flips. You've got, the bass line. Francis adds this great cast. He adds all of the elements to the rumble. We'll get into it. There's a lot of close-ups, a lot of sad boys, a lot of looks. Oh my god. And then the musical.
The looks.
Musical's got good songs. I thought the music was pretty good. The production value was fun. The cast seemed good. Good stuff all around.
Yeah.
All things of value.
Good adaptations. So, we're not here to talk about how good the adaptations are. We're here to talk about how gay it is. Why are people shipping them? And I guess we should say there are multiple ships that people are interested in this. When we read and watched them, the main ship that jumped out to us was Ponyboy and Johnny. Felt like the most obvious one. But if you look on AO3 and if you ask Essie Hinton what fans are asking her about, I assume, there are a lot of fans of Johnny and Dally.
Yes.
An interesting combination of people. So, to begin, a reader on Twitter asked Essie Hinton one day in October of 2020 or whenever this happened if there were any romantic feelings between the characters Johnny and Dallas. An innocent question, you might think.
Yeah.
Essie Hinton replies, "No. Where is the text backing this?"
So we'll talk about where we think the text is backing this. And this is going to, of course, be across the books and the movies and the musical. But again, most of the stuff is in the book. We're not really, there's not so many differences.
Well, I mean, there are tweaks to all of them, but the source material stays very similar throughout both of the adaptations of it.
So, to kick off, Paul Newman. We got a young boy just thinking about Paul Newman.
Obsessed with Paul Newman. He wants to be like him or be with him. Hard to say. Idolizing the man, which, fair enough. Don't we all?
Yeah.
Who among us is not gay for Paul Newman?
That's what I'm saying. I'm gay for Paul Newman.
I'm gay for Paul Newman.
Aren't we all? Isn't that just the human condition? To be gay for Paul Newman?
Absolutely. Ask anyone if they're gay for Paul Newman, and if they say no, that's a liar.
Yeah.
So, starts off on a real gay note. But then, the plot happens.
So we have Johnny and Ponyboy, like we said, after they meet up with Cherry Valance at the drive-thru. They're hanging out outside, and it's cold.
Yeah.
They gotta cuddle
But
up.
neither of them can go inside because Johnny's parents are abusive and Ponyboy's mad at his brother.
Yes. Well, when they initially go to the lot, they're just avoiding Johnny's parents, and they fall asleep in there together. And that's why he goes home late, and then they run off to the park.
Sure. But it's cold, so we're cuddling.
So they get into trouble. They're on the run.
Yep.
Let's talk about what happens in the church.
Yeah, this is where the prime shipping stuff happens for at least Ponyboy and Johnny. So, we're on the run. We're terrified. We've killed someone. What are we going to do? They're coming for us. You know, it's a very emotionally vulnerable time. Morning after they arrive, they've fallen asleep after they get there on the train, and Ponyboy wakes up in the church. He's alone. There's Johnny's jean jacket is somehow draped over him. He brushes it aside. Unclear how Johnny's jacket would have happened. Draped over him. Not sure. But after this, Johnny, who has gone to the store to get them some supplies, comes back. And he's brought, bologna or whatever, something to sustain them for the time that they're there. But you know what he's also brought? A copy of Gone with the Wind. Now, leaving aside the fact that it's Gone with the Wind, which...
Let's do that.
Distasteful. Ponyboy is like, oh my god, how did you know that I wanted Gone with the Wind? And Johnny reddens when he tells him, oh, I just remembered that you'd mentioned it before, and I thought maybe that you could read it to me sometime, and it would pass the time. Embarrassed that he remembered what he liked.
Yes. Which is, okay, interesting. I feel like you and I have given each other many gifts over the years. I don't know that we've blushed upon giving each other gifts, even impromptu gifts.
Yeah.
Even like, I was thinking of you. I don't know that we've been like, oh, no,
how did you know?
What are you gonna think? I got them again. Redden.
It's embarrassing to give people gifts. And then they're obviously on the lam here, so they've got to do something to disguise their appearance, and they pull out a full Jason Bourne cutting the hair of Marie scene.
So romantic.
Oh, very romantic, except the way they do it. They're teenage boys, and they're like hurting each other because they're cutting each other's hair with a switchblade. So
it's not great.
And then they dye, or I guess bleach, Ponyboy's hair. And so then there's a lot of like trying to reassure Ponyboy that he looks okay with the bleached hair.
Which honestly, C. Thomas Howell doesn't look terrible with the bleached hair.
No, it's a vibrant blonde, but he looks fine.
Later, as they're in the church and they're sort of dealing with the fact that one of them killed a boy and they're on the run together, there's a part where Johnny breaks down and and Ponyboy holds him, much like Soda held him after he got beaten up. And then later, Ponyboy breaks down, and Johnny holds him. Just your classic her comfort. I mean,
yeah, that's nice. Then, as they're there, there's not a lot to do in the church when they're not reading each other Gone with the Wind, and so they find themselves watching a sunset. And Johnny comments on how pretty everything is. It looks gold and silver, and he wishes it could stay that way. And this prompts...
Is it a sunset or a sunrise? It's a sunrise.
It might be a sunrise. I don't know. And of course, the thing you do with your platonic bros when they talk about the sunrise with you, a little poetry reading. Ponyboy is like, hey, that reminds me of this poem by Robert Frost. And he reads, or he recites to him, I guess, because he doesn't have it in front of him. Nature's first green is gold, her hardest hue to hold. Her early leaf's a flower, but only so an hour. Then leaf subsides to leaf, so Eden sank to grief. So dawn goes down to day. Nothing gold can stay.
Yeah, because Johnny had been like, oh, the mist is so beautiful. It's all silver and gold. He recites the poem, and Ponyboy's like, I don't really know what it means. And Johnny's like, it means exactly what I was just saying.
Yeah,
this is
that's
exactly
what I
describes
meant.
my feelings. Johnny goes on to tell Ponyboy, I never noticed colors and clouds and stuff till you kept reminding me about them. Kind of like they were never there before. He's opened like whole new worlds to Johnny.
Is there anything more romantic than saying, bro, before you, there was no color in the world? I mean, come on.
Lovely. It's really lovely. It's so beautiful. So this gorgeous. All leads to, if you know any lines from The Outsiders, you probably know the line.
You know this one.
Stay gold, Ponyboy. Which we won't get into it, but it's not stay golden, okay? It's not stay golden.
Don't even think about saying stay golden.
S.E. Hinton will find you and will tell you it's not stay golden.
But anyway.
Yes, as we said, they saved the children from the fire. They're all, Johnny's so badly injured. Oh, poor, it's sad in every edition,
rough.
But poor sweet Ralph Macchio. You're really looking at him. He's lying face down on a table. He can't feel anything below his waist.
And he's like, I used to want to kill myself, but now I realize 16 years isn't enough. I'm not ready to go.
Oh,
you're like,
poor sweet Ralph Macchio.
He, by the way, asks for them to get him a copy of Gone with the Wind so that Ponyboy can read it to him again. Yeah. Very sweet.
But before he passes on, he tells Ponyboy, stay gold, Ponyboy. Keep your youthful outlook on life. Don't get cynical. And tell Dally to not get cynical either. Tell him to look at a sunrise or a sunset. But it's too late. Dally's killed himself. That's in a letter.
It's too late. Yeah, he gets a letter from him after he dies that tells him, reiterates stay gold. And it says, I've learned actually to appreciate all of the things that I had in my life before my death so that I can be at peace. And yeah, he says, tell Dally. And he can't tell Dally.
Dally's already dead.
Dally's gone. But he gets this letter. In the movie, it doesn't happen this way, but in the musical, Cherry Valance shows up at the house of the boys where Ponyboy is just, in shock post-Johnny dying, and he doesn't want to talk to anyone. He just sits there and watches TV. And Cherry shows up with Johnny's stuff, and she says, his parents didn't want it.
He never came
Johnny's
to pick
parents.
up his stuff.
So I thought that Ponyboy should have it, so she brings him the stuff, and there's a letter in there with his things. But before he even reads the letter, he just grabs a hold of Ponyboy's clothes and hugs them. It's of Johnny's clothes. So sweet. But anyway, yeah, he reads this letter. The letter is like, be at peace. I'm fine. You should move on and stay gold, etc. So those are the main strokes of the story all along. I do have to say, the romantic elements become a little bit more explicit in a few of the songs from the musical.
Yes.
So we have some lyrics for you. Everyone loves a dramatic lyric reading.
Of course.
So before anything happens with the killing the boy, but while Ponyboy it's right after Ponyboy's had the fight with his brother and run away. He runs into Johnny, and the two of them start imagining what could happen if they just ran away from Tulsa in a song called Far Away from Tulsa. So here's what they say. They say, let's leave this behind. Let's just get up and go. Find a new place to call home. Make a new life we can call our own. Some place where we can be free. free to decide who we want to be. It's all becoming clear. A place with open spaces, the sounds of whippoorwills. We could watch the sunset over golden rolling hills. A house with flowers on the windowsill, and you could read us stories. This is Johnny saying to Ponyboy, of course. And outside in the yard, we'd have ourselves a garden, but we wouldn't work too hard. And every night we'd stare up at the stars. We'd sit around the fire after every day was through. We'd be each other's family, Pony, start this life anew. This could be a chance to have a place to rest your head. You'd wake up every morning in a big old feather bed.
Wow, really starting a life together, being who they want to be.
Being free from,
Yeah.
society and all that.
Being each other's family.
Reading each other's stories, sitting by the fire. It sounds idyllic.
I mean, it's lovely. It's a lovely way to live. Having a garden, but not working too hard. Good luck with that.
Yeah, right? It's just a garden for fun.
It's a fun
They
garden.
only work on it when they feel like it.
It's a gentleman's garden.
A gentleman's garden, exactly. So that's when there's still like the world of possibility.
Well, this is before they've killed the boy.
It's right before they killed the boy.
so
They're sitting
sad.
there singing a song to each other about how they want to run away from Tulsa when the Socias come up on them and ruin their lives.
Damn it, Bob. Okay.
Damn it, Bob.
As we go on, Pony also has this idea that he's cursed, that he is like
Yes.
bringing bad things to all of his loved ones. And so that comes up in this song, Death's at My Door.
This is after they've run away and Ponyboy is sort of like, you shouldn't have brought me, like you should leave me behind.
So Pony sings, "There's death at my door and I swear that it's following me. Johnny, can't you see I've brought this on? You should move on, you'd be better off without me. Death's shadow is long and it grows all around me."
And Johnny says, Pony, you're wrong. You ain't leaving without me. I don't believe for a minute any of this nonsense you're saying. I wouldn't give a damn even if every single word was true. I had no reason to live back in Tulsa. Sadness was all that I knew. I don't believe in the death that you're bringing. The reason I'm living is you.
Wow.
Wherever, and then I think they're singing this together. Wherever you go,
that's where
I'll be. Even if death
tags along.
tags along, I don't mind. It's still you and me. I'll never leave you alone.
Wow.
That's nice. What a nice song.
That's a nice song. That's an intense level of commitment.
It really is. He's never leaving him alone. Wherever he is, that's where he'll be. But it's very nice that he tells him the reason he's living is him. He had nothing to live for in Tulsa.
Mm-hmm.
So then bad stuff happens, as we told you. Johnny dies. And after Johnny dies, Pony, the only thing that gets him out of his funk is receiving this letter from Johnny telling him, I mean, all kinds of stuff, but basically telling him, I'm fine, so you should move on.
Yeah. It's okay that I'm dead. I'm at peace.
Yeah. So Johnny says in his letter, looking back at the life I've had, I hold on to the good because I've made my peace with all the bad. 16 years, look at all we've done. Wouldn't trade it for the world. Can't you see that we're the lucky ones? I have known a love that many never know. And our love lives on, no matter where I go. We all will meet our end, no matter if we meet it young or old. My friend, stay gold. What's this love that he knew that many never know?
I don't know. The love of friendship? The love of true friendship. We didn't mention this, and I forgot it somehow when I was rewatching the movie, and it's not super about this, but the main theme for the film, The Outsiders, is done by Stevie Wonder, and it's pretty great. Just FYI.
Stevie! Hell yeah.
Just FYI to everyone. This is, again, the pull of Francis Ford Coppola. He was like, can we get Stevie to do the theme? And they were like, sure.
Yeah, why not?
You're Francis Ford Coppola.
Absolutely.
Just asking.
So, that's Johnny and Ponyboy. In all three variations, I would say fairly romantic stuff going on. But, as we said, they are not the only ship. And we definitely need to talk about Johnny and Dally, since that is a very popular ship.
The most popular ship.
Within the fandom. So, what do you think their deal is?
Well, I mean, Dally obviously cares very much about Johnny. When Johnny dies, he kills himself. So that's fairly intense.
It's pretty dramatic.
That would seem to indicate a depth of feeling.
In the book, they do go so far as to say he realizes that he killed himself because the only person he loved was Johnny, and now Johnny is dead. So, like, depending on how you're reading the loved part, like, that's fairly explicit.
I mean, I think the thing is, right, like, we're in Ponyboy's perspective, so we spend a lot of time with him and actually with Johnny, whereas we don't necessarily see Johnny and Dally together a lot, but it's pretty intense. It is. It's a pretty intense situation.
I would say, just to put my own particular spin on it, not that there's more weight to that than anyone else, I feel like Dally has, like, a lot of big brother energy towards Johnny.
Mm-hmm.
Wants to take care of him, wants to make sure that he's okay. There's talk throughout that Johnny is sort of like the pet of the whole gang. Like, everybody thinks it because he's sort of like small and sweet, and like everybody feels like they gotta take care of him. Traumatized. So there's this idea that everyone in the gang feels like they need to take care of Johnny, and then there's this potentially like special bond between Dally and Johnny, because Dally is someone who, like, doesn't let a lot of people in, given his background, and
seems to relate to having parents who don't really care about him.
Absolutely, because why did his parents let him hop a bunch of trains throughout the country? So yes, undeniably, in all versions, Dally cares a lot about Johnny. You can read into that whatever you desire, but we're only getting it through Ponyboy's lens.
Then we have a couple of lesser ships, but things that we still want to talk about.
No less meaningful to us.
So true.
So first, I guess I'm going to say, because there's not that much to go on, and I want to save the other one for last. Soda Pop and his best friend Steve. There's something going on there. Not in all the versions. In the musical, Steve has 0 lines.
Not a lot of Steve. We've cut out Steve.
Very little Steve.
And in the book, Ponyboy does not like Steve because he's hanging out with Soda Pop so much.
Hell yeah. Jealous.
He's like, Steve is always here. Why is Steve around? Why does Soda Pop always want to hang out with Steve? And you're like, well, yeah, why does Soda Pop always want to hang out with Steve?
Soda Pop want. But in the movie, part of what's doing the work is that they are such beautiful boys in Rob Lowe and Tom Cruise.
Mm-hmm.
But they're, like, in each other's pockets all the time. The two of them constantly together. They work together at the gas station. They're never apart. Best friends, Soda Pop and Steve.
When they're getting ready for work in that one scene, he's like, you need to put a shirt on. They get to him in the shower, and then he's like, shoes, you need your shoes, wear your shoes. Yeah. He's going to go to work without his shoes. It's worth saying. I actually don't know if it's worth saying, but I'm going to say. In the scene before the Rumble, they do some flips, but only 2 people do flips. Mm-hmm. Swayze does a flip over the fence. He sort of like handstands over it. And Tom Cruise does a backflip. So that's what Tom Cruise is really bringing to the table. Off the hood of a car. Yeah, hell yeah. Do it, Tom Cruise.
Hell yeah,
He's
Cruise.
doing stunts, baby. He's doing stunts. He's Tom Cruise.
Delightful. So that's Soda Pop and Steve. And then we have perhaps our favorite chip. Mm-hmm. Just because there's so many possibilities.
So much room. Okay. So, as we said, Derry is sort of straddling this line between greaser and so. She's a greaser because that's his family, right? Yep. There's a part in maybe all the versions of the movie, I can't remember, where they say, like, Derry's only a greaser because of us, because we're his brothers. But he was, like, captain of the football team. He was this golden boy. He's going to go to college. Mm-hmm. And so right at the Rumble, we reveal his friend Paul. And I would like to read from the book. So they've come to the Rumble. They're facing off. They're like, who's going to start the Rumble? Derry says, I'll take on anyone. And then there was a slight stir in the faceless mob of socias, and a husky blonde guy stepped forward. He looked at Derry and said quietly, hello, Daryl. Something flickered behind Derry's eyes, and then they were ice again. Hello, Paul. I heard Soda give a kind of squeak, and I realized that the blonde was Paul Holden. He had been the best halfback on Derry's football team at high school, and he and Derry used to buddy it around all the time. He must be a junior in college by now, I thought. So this guy's come back from college to Rumble with Derry.
Yes. What is the something that flickers behind Derry's eyes?
And also just, hello, Daryl. Ooh. And Soda Pop squeaking?
I know. Soda Pop knows something.
He knows something.
And we should say, we didn't write down the actual dialogue, but in the musical, the same moment happens, but Paul... I can't even believe this happens. I feel ridiculous saying it. Paul, it's like, hey, remember that Madras shirt I gave you? He tells him he looked really good in it.
Yeah. And I bet he did.
I bet he did too, but what a weird thing to say at the beginning of a Rumble. I guess he's trying to be like, remember when you were cool and a soch and now you're lame and a greaser? But instead he's just like, hey, remember how hot you were in that present I gave you?
And you're like, yeah, I mean, I bet he's thinking about it. I mean, we see thick Daryl before our very eyes. I get it. Like, I get it.
Yeah, purple and yellow Madras shirt. I'm sure it looked great.
Yeah. So, there's just not a lot of Daryl and Paul, but I feel like there's a lot of opportunity.
There's like a Romeo and Juliet situation with the two of them. They're coming from the opposite camps. And clearly the actors from the musical think that it's delightful too, because there's all these behind the scenes pictures of the two of them sitting in each other's laps and stuff.
And you're like, hell yeah.
And you're like, yeah, get it, Daryl and Paul.
So,
Yeah.
not a lot there, but probably the one I'm most intrigued by, the one that has the most air around it to really fill in. And you're just like, what could you do with
if there's
Daryl and
any
Paul?
aspiring fic writers in the Outsiders fandom and you're looking for a ship that's not one of the main ones, please write Daryl and Paul.
Yeah. Because we want to know what's going on with them.
Want to see. Yes.
And I also, I just want to know what's going on with them. What happened? What was their breakup like? Oh my God.
Dramatic, you know it.
Are they going to get back together?
Maybe. Well, hopefully they're all... part of a thing that happens over the course of the story is that the, socialists start to realize that the greasers are greasers by no fault of their own, and, there's nothing that can be done about this situation. The rich people are all still going to be privileged, and the poor people can't do anything about it. And you're like, yeah, that's...
There's a scene right before the Rumble where the guy who was Bob's best friend is like, I'm not going to Rumble. They have a real heart to heart, you're a person, I'm a person talk between him and Ponyboy. It's really lovely. Mm-hmm. It's actually a very lovely scene. Yeah,
except that the result of it is guess there's nothing we can do about this horrible inequality. Sucks to be you.
Well, they're kids. I mean, really, what can they do? But... And then, of course, as we mentioned at the top, late in the book, it's revealed that there's this whole set of other middle-class kids who are not involved in this at all that Ponyboy's friends with because they're in his classes. And it really did answer a question I had, which is is the school just a bunch of rich kids and poor kids who fight all the time? But no, it's a mostly normal school probably with rich kids and poor kids who are constantly rumbling.
And everyone's like, what's going on with all these rich kids and poor kids?
Oh, that's the other fan fiction I would like to read is one of Ponyboy's middle-class friends who just goes to the school and is like, what is up with these people?
Especially since they're friends with Ponyboy. So they he comes in on Monday covered in bruises and stuff. And they're like, what did you do over the weekend?
Are you okay? And he's like, nah, I was rumbling. And they're like,
rumbling? What even is that?
With the rich kids?
Yeah, one of them got murdered because he was trying to kill me, and you're like, what?
Yeah, I want to hear the story from some random middle class person who goes to the school.
Oh, damn.
Because here's the thing, right? That's us. We're the middle class people who go to the school. Just what's going on around the margins of our school?
We're reading this book, going huh? You guys are crazy.
How do you guys have time for this?
When do you do your homework?
Yeah. Okay. Anyway.
Okay. So
all the stuff.
We must now speak about S.E. Hinton.
Now, when we read earlier her quote about no, where's the text for this? You might say that's a little confrontational.
It's a little short.
Yeah.
But she's speaking over Twitter. Sometimes it's hard to convey what you're actually, your tone. So maybe she's very well-meaning.
Is she?
No. Not at all. This blew up into a whole thing, but it was October of some year, that on Twitter, she defied the number one rule, which is just stop talking. Don't reply. She became a replier, and it didn't work out for her. Mm-mm. So, yeah, there was someone asking if Johnny and Dally, Derry and Dally being so similar is the bane of my existence, by the way. Those two names. It's rough, man. It's rough. But anyway, Johnny and Dally, people are asking, are they gay? She's like, no, why would you even ask that? Someone said to her that they thought a relationship between them would be cute. Very benign thing to say, don't you think? How did Hinton take that?
She responded with, ask someone in the 60s how cute it was to be gay. I have many friends I love and do not want to sleep with. So there's like sort of two radically different statements in that one statement.
Yes. First of all, yeah, okay. Well, I guess second of all, but we'll start with it. I have many friends I love and don't want to sleep with. Sure, great. We all do. Everyone does.
Yes, we know.
Granted.
Everyone knows.
Fine. But the premise of your statement is, I wrote these characters, they are not gay. It's easy enough to say, in my mind, when I wrote them, I didn't imagine them as gay, but, to each their own, yada, yada. The stock answer. But to say, ask someone in the 60s how cute it was to be gay, you're saying they're closeted and gay is what you're saying, is it not? Like, you're saying being out was a struggle, so they wouldn't think of it as cute. It was really hard to be gay in the 60s. And you're like, well, you're telling me they're not gay. Why are you even bringing this up?
But also, like, they might still have been cute.
Oh, they were definitely cute. I mean, there were definitely cute gay people in the 60s.
Yeah.
But, like, why have you taken it to that place? That's what I don't understand.
Yes, it's one thing to say, I didn't write them to be gay because in my mind they weren't gay. Okay, that's one thing to say.
And it's like, sure, great.
It's another thing to say, I didn't write them to be gay because it wasn't acceptable in the 60s. That's a different statement. Or it would have been hard for them. Like, okay, but that doesn't mean they wouldn't have been gay.
Yeah, it just would have been hard for them.
Yeah.
So are you saying they were gay, but they don't talk about it because it would have been hard for them?
I don't know. It's very confusing.
What's your point?
I think as we will find as we go through this, she's not very consistent in her position. She's very reactive to anything. So she is just trying to say no in as many ways as possible. And they don't really line up in a way that forms a coherent response. Mm-hmm. So yes, in this, she has two radically different thoughts, which one is it was hard to be gay in the 60s, which fair enough. Okay. That didn't stop people from being gay.
And another is people can be friends and not be gay. It's like, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
They can.
What do those two things have to do with each other?
What are you talking about, girl? So then in a similar, I think this is like one long,
back and forth
blow up. So it's probably different people, but similar time period. She again is saying that the characters are not gay, but she does want people to know, quote, I have no problem with anyone being gay. Longtime supporter of LGBT rights. No, they are not gay. I wrote them. I ought to know. Ladies never heard of Death of the Author.
No Death of the Author, but also to that point, right, of her being like, where is this in the text? It's like, you littered it throughout the subtext. Do you not know what subtext is? Because
that's a problem.
So you might not have intended, but sometimes you got to face the facts that, like, whoops, I wrote him as gay. We've seen that happen before.
Sometimes it'd be like that, And maybe she didn't think that she was writing them that way when she was 16, but, like, she was. Mm-hmm. So there's all this going on, a lot of tension, her doubling down, they can't be gay, blah, blah, blah. And people are starting to get a little offended by it because it's one thing to say, I didn't write them as gay, but read them however you like. And it's another to say, you're wrong. You can't read them as gay because I didn't write them that way. And so someone says to her that all of her responses are trash, saying, why would you reject young gay kids interpreting your characters in a way that makes them feel safe? Good question.
And she responds with, young gay kids can identify with the book without me saying the characters are gay. I never, ever set out to make anyone feel safe. Which, again, is like two separate thoughts. Again, she could have stopped with, I didn't intend for them to be gay, but you know what? You're right. It's great that people identify with them. And then that would have been like, okay.
She doesn't think it's great.
But she doesn't. And by saying I never set out to make anyone feel safe, she's like, I'm glad they feel unsafe.
Yeah, I hate when people feel safe.
Because they're not gay. I would rather me tell you that they're not gay than you feel safe. And you're just like, okay.
Needlessly aggressive. So this goes on and on for, it looks like a day since we're reading an article about it. People are upset. She's going back and forth with them. Someone ends up suggesting she apologize for how all of these responses are coming off. And she says, I said I did not write the characters that way. I apologize for nothing.
Defiant.
Then, so again, this is all happening in October of, I guess I can give you a year now. Oh, sorry, it was October of 2016 is when this is happening. So not 2020, much earlier. And then she hasn't gotten over it because in January of 2017, she's still mad. And I guess, presumably people on Twitter are also still mad at her.
Yes.
Because she tweets out, hashtag things I won't apologize for. I am a heterosexual writer writing about heterosexual characters being attacked for being heterosexual.
Yep, that's a classic. We should need to add that into our classic quotes. I don't think she's being attacked for being heterosexual.
I think she's probably being attacked for being a dick.
Yeah. And I realized we didn't capture this quote, but we found another thing from her where she was like, I didn't write them as gay because I'm not part of that community, so it wouldn't be appropriate for me. And it's like, you're also not a man.
You're not a man. You're not a greaser.
Have you been in many rumbles? What was your rumble situation like growing up? So it's like, I don't know if that's a good excuse.
But as you said, it's just another thing to throw at the wall. She has like every possible explanation for why they're not gay, when it's easy as hell to just be like, I didn't see them that way when I wrote it, but whatever you guys want.
Interesting interpretation. I could see how you might read it that way, or it's nice that you read it that way, or... It's
the laziest possible version, but how many creators or actors or whoever have said, no, I didn't play it that way, I didn't write it that way, blah, 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 but it's cool that people see it that way. Like, the most nothing support for queer fans, but it like the baseline thing, the easiest thing to do. And she can't even meet that bar.
Maybe it's true, and it could be true that she's like, when I was 16, I did not think of them as being gay, but oh, okay, sure.
Right. Exactly.
Fine. Great.
But like, how hard is it to say, oh, an interesting interpretation that I didn't intend, but good for you?
No. Where is it in the text?
Everywhere! They're so gay!
Where is it in the text? They're not gay because it wasn't cute to be gay in the 60s. They're not gay because I have friends I don't want to fuck. They're not gay.
She also does the, like, men in the 60s weren't worried about being affectionate with each other because that was, like, a normal thing to do or whatever. And you're like, okay.
Okay. So it's just, you feel her discomfort. And her just like, no.
Some people, some writers just shouldn't have Twitter.
I think a lot of people shouldn't have Twitter. I would say like the
public
vast
figures
majority,
in general.
I think like Twitter shouldn't exist, maybe.
Well, in its current form, obviously not. Former Twitter had a lot of good stuff going for it, but
I don't know.
Now it's dead.
So that's Essie Hinton. We also found out over the course of researching this that she is a supernatural fanfic writer and super fan. She's
a supernatural stan who reached out to Eric Kripke to say, I love your show. And he was like, I love The Outsiders. Do you want to come visit the set? And she did. And then she visited the set every year for the rest of the show.
Yeah.
And there are like a million pictures of her with the cast of Supernatural. She wrote fanfic for it and gave it to Eric Kripke, which I think is wild behavior. But apparently he liked it, according to her.
But sort of in the back and forth of her not being like a consistent person in terms of what she says, there are quotes of her being like, fanfic can be as good as any writing, but then also quotes of her being like, no supernatural fanfic is as good as any of the canon. And you're like, that can't possibly be true.
Yeah. But then she also talks about how she read some fanfic of The Outsiders and it made her cry.
Yeah. So you're like,
this woman's all over the place.
She's just combative. It's you know, it's when you meet someone, they're very combative and they just want to be contrary. And you're like, you're not being consistent though in what you're saying. You're just fighting with me.
But maybe her position really is, I read Outsiders fanfic and it was great because the writing of The Outsiders is just fine. But Supernatural fanfiction can never be as good as Supernatural because Supernatural writing is the best writing that has ever happened.
Yeah, not consistently.
No, I mean, she's wrong, but I'm saying maybe that's her position.
Fair. I mean, again, you read The Outsiders and you're like, this was written by a 16-year-old girl. Yeah, I can
exactly.
Tell. I can tell.
We all know. It's obvious.
It's fine, but it's clear.
It's clear.
Okay, so that's Essie Hinton. But what about our other people involved in the mix? What about Francis? Francis is here making choices, doing things. What's Francis up to? Does he have anything to say?
Yes, he said some weird shit.
I think, here's the thing. We're living in a post-megalopolis world, And after seeing these films, which honestly are not talked about as much as his Godfathers and his Apocalypse Nows,
Yeah.
I think Francis Ford Coppola is a weird man.
Yes, definitely.
That's my takeaway at this point. I think he's a strange man.
So, anyway, he's talking about the production of the movie, saying, as I said to you, he was like, I want to be true to the the book as much as possible. But he does say several pivotal scenes from the book were left on the cutting room floor because the studio wanted them to finish the movie quickly. And he tells the story of fans noticing one of the scenes being missing, which is a scene where Soda Pop and Ponyboy, they share a bed because they don't have enough bedrooms in their house, which I think is interesting because
there used to be 2 parents in the house.
So were all 3 boys sharing the bedroom before?
I guess.
Anyway, unimportant. I just noticed that right now. Mm-hmm. So there's a scene where Soda Pop and Ponyboy are in bed and Soda Pop is consoling Ponyboy, and they are like hugging as he consoles him. And so Coppola had cut that out of the movie, but he screened it for some kids, and they reacted. They were like, "Where's the scene? We love that scene." So Coppola says,
"Do you want me to read it? Are you okay?"
Go ahead. It's so funny.
Coppola says, "In those days, I was a little bit leery myself of such a beautiful boy like Soda Pop in bed hugging his brother. It was only later when I took the film to be shown to my granddaughter's class that I realized the kids knew the book better than the film expressed. There is the scene with Soda Pop in bed with Ponyboy where they talk about what it's like to be in love. All of those scenes that I was a little frightened of. I understood that I was naive in my views. The subject that we're speaking of is more complicated but beautiful, more human. So I happily put back some of the scenes. I, as well as everybody else in the world, had a lot to learn about the beauty and complexity of the human heart."
I'm so glad that making this movie could teach him about the beauty and complexity of the human heart.
He's learning. He was leery of a boy as beautiful as Soda Pop hugging his brother. But that's how beautiful Rob Lowe is.
To be fair, that is how beautiful Rob Lowe is in the 80s. He's gorgeous. But they're brothers.
Yeah, I wouldn't be worried about it at all. He was naive in his views that people would be like, "This is incest?" His naive view was that people would be like,
"That's
this is
so
gross."
Naive. Open your heart, Coppola. You're so naive. You think people will assume it's incest just because Rob Lowe is such a beautiful boy.
Yeah. Brothers can hug. It's great.
Anyway, meaningful experience for Francis Ford Coppola making this film.
Yeah. So our last quote that we have is from one of the actors. C. Thomas Howell, of course, plays Ponyboy in the movie. I found this fascinating.
This is amazing.
This is all the Coppola quote, and the C. Thomas Howell is from an oral history of The Outsiders that was published, I don't know, semi-recently. And let me see when this is from. 2021.
It's yeah.
So a few years ago. So at one point, this is part of this conversation too about how people view the various boys. And C. Thomas Howell says, "I get kids all the time asking, 'Do you ship Ponyboy and Johnny? Are they gay?' How do you answer that? And why does it even matter? These kids are hurting. They're trying to figure out who they are."
Yeah, they're trying to figure out if they're gay.
That's what they're trying to figure out. But kids are still coming up to C. Thomas Howell, 60-year-old C. Thomas Howell all the time, being like, "Do you ship Ponyboy and Johnny?" That's fascinating. I'm fascinated about
Maybe
C. Thomas
it's
Howell's
happening
life.
at fan events or something. That's the only situation I can imagine.
All the time.
I do not believe that C. Thomas Howell is just walking down the street and kids are walking up to him saying, "Do you ship Ponyboy and Johnny?" I don't think kids know who C. Thomas Howell is.
No, all the time. He's just in the world, and kids are coming out of the woodworks being like, "Are they gay?"
And he's like, "Why does it even matter?"
How do I even answer that?
I love, how do you even answer that? Just say yes or no. They're saying, in your opinion, do you ship Ponyboy and Johnny?
How are you not sure about that?
That part of a question
I don't know.
to answer.
How do I answer that? Do I ship Ponyboy and Johnny?
I really haven't given it much thought. All these years later, people have been asking me about it for
even though kids are constantly asking me, I
years.
still don't know. I don't know. But why does it matter?
Yeah.
These kids are hurting. How do you answer that?
How do you answer that?
Oh, I'm just obsessed. I'm obsessed with the fact that C. Thomas Howell's like, this still rules my life. And you're like, wow. Okay. Okay. So, Essie Hinton, combative. C. Thomas Howell, confused. Francis, heart
Just
growing every
loves
day.
beautiful boys.
His heart is growing 3 sizes every day.
His heart did grow 3 sizes making that movie.
He matures and sees the world through the eyes of a child and understands that brothers can hug each other, and it's so beautiful.
And it's not gay.
It's not gay. It really comes from all over the place. Okay.
All right.
Let's talk about fan production.
Yes, please. So, obviously, this book/movie predate AO3. That's going to skew some of our statistics. They predate the internet. So, whatever fandom production was happening back in the day is not going to be capturable by us. But we are going to give you the AO3 numbers as we always do. On AO3, there are about 7,000 fics tagged The Outsiders. We did find out that there are about 8.8 thousand Outsiders fics on fanfiction.net.
Very
Interesting
good
to note. So a lot of fandom activity was happening before AO3 came about. We were surprised to learn that the most popular ship in the Outsiders tag is Johnny and Dallas with about 720 something fics, and then we have Johnny and Ponyboy with about 650. And Soda Pop and Steve 418.
We did not capture Daryl and Paul, though, so guys, come on. We need to really
where are Daryl and
that
Paul?
out.
My guess, since I didn't really do a lot of investigating, is that a lot of the Soda Pop Steve stuff is like a secondary ship in fics that are about the other two.
Sure.
So we read the top fics for Johnny and Dallas and Johnny and Ponyboy, and we can briefly tell you about them, but spoiler alert, they're porn.
Smut.
It's just smut. So the Johnny Dallas fic is called Love It If We Made It by Bread Lad. And the premise of this is Johnny is sitting around thinking his thoughts. He's been feeling weird lately. He doesn't know why. Every time he's around Johnny, he's particularly weird. But again, no idea why this is happening. No, sorry, Dally is sitting around thinking about this. Did I say Johnny? That's my bad. Dally's sitting around thinking every time he's around Johnny, he's weird, but he doesn't know why. And then 2-Bit shows up and he's like, yo, I found a girl. I'm going to walk her home. Do you mind driving Johnny home? And he's like, sure. And then he's driving Johnny home. Tensions are high in the car. Johnny starts like nervously tapping his leg, and Dally puts his hand on his leg to stop it. And then Johnny's like, it's on, basically. He's like, pull the car over. He hops in his lap, and they have sex. And that's the whole thing. At the end, they're cuddling, and he's like, should we get out of here? And Johnny's like, I don't have anywhere to go. And Dally's like, me neither. Let's just stay here. Nice. But that's the whole fic. That's what's going on there.
Okay.
Similar to the Johnny Ponyboy fic?
Yeah, so Johnny Ponyboy fic is One Breath Away by Magic Bubble Pipe. And in this one, Ponyboy's sitting, thinking his thoughts, lost in thought. Johnny comes back behind him and startles him, and then they have sex.
Yep. There's a little bit of like, I would say the Johnny Ponyboy one is a little bit more emotional, because it's like Johnny's just come from getting hit by his dad, and he thinks about, how he feels about all of this, and there's a lot of like, how are you doing inside?
It's not like a lot.
Well, a lot in terms of it's like a 1,200 word fic, and there's like maybe 100 words.
Yeah,
of,
proportionally sure.
How are we doing? But yeah, for the most part, they're banging.
Yeah,
that's both of them.
That's what's happening. So, again, not quite what we're looking for in terms of like really fleshing out the Daryl Paul relationship. I want the ups, the downs.
That's what we want. Give us Daryl Paul. I want like a
epic,
100,000 word fic about what it was like for them before. It could be told in the present time of them like getting back together, but I want flashbacks to what it was like when they went to high school together.
Yeah, I mean, it should start with that bit in the Rumble and then just like cut back to everything. It all comes flooding back to them.
Okay, pitch for a premise here. Where we have that moment. things come together a little bit for the Curtis boys. Everybody sorts themselves out emotionally, and maybe Daryl gets to a place where he can finally go to college, right? And so he's going to college, and at this point, Paul is now in grad school, but he's going to the same school. The two of them run into each other on campus.
Oh my God.
Things are reignited.
Oh my God, yes. Away from, like, the constraints of the socius and
exactly.
the greasers.
Outside of the town. But, you know, all of their past keeps coming back to haunt them, of course.
I mean,
because clearly Paul's not removed from it. He was a junior in college when he went back to have a rumble.
To have the rumble. But maybe he knew that Daryl was going to be at the... I mean, he must have known Daryl was going to be at the rumble.
Oh my God.
Maybe that comes out in the future. They're, like, lying in bed together. He's like, why did you come back for that rumble? And he's like, I just wanted to see you. And you're like, oh my God. I just wanted to touch you again. Oh my God.
Exactly. Men inventing rituals to touch the skin of other men.
Oh my God. I just wanted to feel you, even if it was you punching me. I don't know.
Even if it hurt.
Even if it hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, hell yeah.
Okay. Can someone do that for us, please?
Can we commission a fic?
So good. Okay. We're not going to really talk about it, but to our earlier point of there not being a lot there for Rumblefish, Rumblefish has 37 fics, with the most popular couple being Steve and Rusty James at 2 whole fics.
Yep. The rest of them were all, like, crossovers with the Outsiders, so I think they just sort of put the characters into the Outsiders world.
These boys could rumble. Anyone can rumble.
Yep. So, we didn't read them. Sorry. Could have. There were only 2. We could have read all of them.
We could have, but we didn't. We sort of dropped Rumblefish, but it was interesting. It's interesting. S.E. Hinton, a wild person.
She really is. She really, really is. So, I mean, we've mostly discussed this already, but how do fans and creators interact?
Not well. Adversarially.
Yep.
She's here to get into fights. She's 7 years old, and she's here to rumble.
That's true. She loves a rumble.
She loves to rumble.
She also has some, like, not super positive fan interactions just in the Supernatural fandom. We found multiple Tumblr posts of Supernatural fans being like, fuck S.E.
This is why I hate S.E. Hinton. This is a non-complete list of all the things I hate about S.E. Hinton. You're just like, okay.
Okay, so she's making friends everywhere she goes.
Indeed. Indeed.
All right. Shall we ask the question? Mm-hmm. Is it queer baiting, queer coding, or queer canon?
I mean, obviously, Essie would say none. No. I think queer coding, though. What do you think?
It's absolutely queer coded.
Yeah, especially as it moves along through time.
Yeah, I mean, she might not have intended it, though I still feel like her characters are queer coded. They're definitely queer coded in the movie, and they're, like, almost queer canon in the musical.
Yeah.
If we gender swap them, would they be a couple?
Well, there's an interesting element to the book where Ponyboy and Johnny talk about how all the other greasers were like, stay away from girls. Girls
Stay
suck.
away from girls.
They're going to ruin your life.
To the point where they're both like, okay, God, I will.
I'm
Girls
not
must
date
be
any
scary.
girls. So, I mean, in the musical, they do introduce the girl greaser. She's not really involved in any sort of romantic entanglements with anyone, seemingly.
I mean, she could be dating Steve for all we know.
Neither of them have any lines. It's hard to say.
Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, there's just no girls in the gang. I don't know how that would function.
It'd be tough to get a girl into the gang.
Yeah.
And I mean, you could like make one of them a Soch, make them Cherry Valance, Cherry Valance. Mm-hmm. But that changes the whole story.
Yeah. It's not like anyone ends up dating Cherry Valance.
Mm-mm. Not at all. She shares one conversation with Ponyboy, and
oh my God,
God damn, you can read?
Well, that's in the music. In the movies, it's less that, and in the musical, she literally says to him, "You don't look like someone who can read."
She's like, "Don't take this the wrong way, but I did not think you could read."
What a burn! Damn, Cherry.
It's so funny, but also I've said this already, but I love that every one of these feels like it's written by a teenager, and that in the musical is such a teenager character development moment where the two of them bond because she's like, "Oh my God, you've read Great Expectations? Holy shit, you can read? And he's like, oh my God, she also is an intellectual like me. We must be in love.
You've also seen sunsets? Oh my God, no one else ever sees the sunset. It's like, okay.
Okay, guys.
Well,
Yeah,
again,
you're
in the
probably
musical, it's
soulmates.
not clear that there's a bunch of middle-class people running around who are normal that they could also be interacting with.
They could. They sure could. Is the drive-in movie theater, are there middle-class kids there?
Probably.
They're just like fighting keeps happening around them, and they're like, why is there always some nonsense happening when I try to go to the movie theater?
Yeah.
This is crazy.
Or maybe there's a different drive-in that those people don't frequent on like the west side of town that all the normal people go to, and they're like, we can't go to that other one. There's people who are always
There's
fighting.
constant fighting. It's ridiculous.
I hope that town has at least 2 drive-in theaters so you can get away from the Socs and the Greasers, because like, who wants to deal with that?
No. I mean, it's going to interrupt your movie, and you're trying to watch Paul Newman.
I'm definitely trying to watch Paul Newman.
If I'm sitting there watching Cool Hand Luke and there's like fighting happening in front of my seat, I'm going to be like, get out of here!
Jeez. Oh my God.
All right. So
Nobody can afford to eat 50 eggs.
nobody can afford to eat 50 eggs, am I right?
All right.
All right. Why isn't it canon?
Take it up with Essie Hinton. It's not in the text.
She won't let it be canon. That's why.
No. We hinted at earlier, but she also gets into lots of fights with people who say stay golden, Ponyboy. She's very, very protective of her writing.
I mean, I'm assuming she was being tongue-in-cheek, but it's always hard to tell with her. But, like, Patton Oswalt at one point tweeted stay golden about something, and she was like, it's gold, not golden. I used to like you. You're like, damn, girl.
But seemingly anytime anyone tweets stay golden, she has to pop into the thread and be like, it's gold.
I think she's, like, searching stay golden on Twitter just to find people that she can correct.
Gold.
At one point, she's like, what's going to be written on my tombstone? It's gold, not golden. And I'm like, just give up.
Let it go.
Just let it go. Just be happy that people are trying to reference your thing this many years later.
60 years later, so few books get remembered. Like, just chill. Man, just chill. Out. Just chill out. Just take it down a notch.
I just now had the thought, this woman is so crazy. What if she finds our podcast episode?
Then she's going to tweet about it, which is fine because I don't fucking have Twitter.
All right. Anyway, I stand by it. Essie, if you're listening, maybe just relax a little bit.
Just mellow out, man. It's all good. Mm-hmm. Everything's good. The world is falling apart. It doesn't matter.
Nothing matters. Nothing matters.
Things matter, but certainly not this.
Well, yeah, I mean, not this.
The fact that nobody can afford 50 eggs is what matters.
All right. So we said it's queer coded. We said it's not queer baiting, so we don't have to rank it on the queer baiting scale. Anything else before we wrap up?
I mean, they're quick reads. The Francis movies are entertaining and wild, and just it's so fun to think about him, the man who made what is often considered the best American film of all time. Going on to make these 2 films and being like, The Godfather was not the best American film of all time. If I made the best American film of all time, it's Rumblefish. And you're like, God bless.
You're a weird man, and I love it.
And I would say, if you can't get to New York, to go to Broadway. If the musical starts touring and makes it to your town, check it out.
I'm sure it will.
Yeah. It's been very successful.
It's very successful. It won the Tony for Best Musical last year, and it's still running, and I'm sure it will enter a touring production at some point. So go see it.
Yeah, it's fun. And hopefully your dairy is as thick as our dairy was.
Yeah. I wish that I wish thick dairies upon you all.
Thick dairies.
All right, what are we talking about next time?
Next time we will be talking about The Old Guard and The Old Guard 2, presumably. So this is a request that we got a while back, who knows when. And the internet claims that the sequel is finally coming out this July. So hopefully that remains true, and we will be talking about both of those films.
Fingers crossed. In the meantime, if you have comments, questions, or concerns, not you, S.E. Hinton, but everyone else, you can reach out to us at ltbkpod@gmail.com. We are on Tumblr at ltbkpod, and we have a Discord. You can find the link on our Tumblr. If you're enjoying the podcast, tell a friend, leave us a review, and subscribe. The next episode will be out in July of 2025.